be competitors, until one brave man joined forces with a veteran crime fighter to clean up a very dirty business. Tonight, the wise guys caught on tape, ruling the mean streets with threats, intimidation, and terror. Here's Chris Hansen.
Imagine you're about to open a business and money's tight. You're trying to keep track of every penny. Then you get the news. When it comes to a service you can't live without, you have no choice, and the service will cost you top dollar. And if you ignore them or defy them, it could be dangerous.
They told me it wasn't smart for me to do.
What do they mean by that?
I felt it was said in an intimidating fashion that it wasn't smart health-wise.
Who was threatening this man? And about what? He's a New York restaurant owner, and believe it or not, he's talking about the people who took away his garbage. Was there any question in your mind that this company was linked to organized crime?
No, there's never been a question in my mind in regard to that.
You feared him?
Sure.
And if you didn't like the guy who hauled your trash, shopkeepers told us that was just too bad.
If they really want to cause you headaches, they'll get a fight in your restaurant, and somebody will get hurt. And the people that started the fight will run off down the street and leave you with a healthy lawsuit.
This had been the situation in New York for 40 years, ever since the city stopped picking up commercial trash. And as you'll see later, for the first time on television, intimidation and threats ordered by the highest ranks of the mafia were used on anyone trying to move in on the mob's turf.
The members of this cartel really thought they owned their customers.
The DA says the vast majority of companies that hauled commercial trash belonged to a cartel, a group that divided up all the buildings in the city and assigned them to individual haulers. The customer had no control whatsoever, even though the companies could buy, sell, or trade the customers among themselves.
If New York City wants to keep business here, they just can't afford to pay $500 million a year to the mob.
Morgenthau has made it his mission to break the garbage cartel. He spent 5 years investigating the industry, and he had an unlikely ally.
He asked us to help, and I asked him what he meant by that, and he spelled it out as much as he could.
William Ruckelshaus. You may remember him as President Nixon's Deputy Attorney General. Ruckelshaus refused Nixon's order to fire Watergate prosecutor Archibald Cox and resigned during the infamous Saturday Night Massacre. For 7 years, he headed Texas-based Browning Ferris Industries, or BFI. He is now chairman of the board. BFI was trying to crack the New York market at the same time Morgenthau was trying to crack the cartel.
It was clear without the help of him and others in the city that we simply couldn't make it.
BFI was offering huge discounts, trying to lure new customers, but most New York businesses refused to switch. BFI says it was the result of a campaign of intimidation by the old carters, a scheme that included strong-arm tactics against BFI.
They'd follow the trucks, they'd steal the containers if we had containers out. They even stole the truck one time. And just general harassment, the kind of thing that actually doesn't go on in other marketplaces in our business.
And then BFI got a warning that seemed to come straight out of The Godfather.
There was a morning when one of your executives woke up to find on his suburban lawn the severed head of a German Shepherd with a note tied to it saying, "Welcome to New York." That had to be a little frightful.
Yeah, it was. It frightened him, frightened his wife, you can imagine.
No one was ever arrested in connection with the dog incident. The executive left BFI, but BFI was in New York to stay.
How much danger were the BFI drivers or the BFI executives in?
They were in danger. They had security. They had bodyguards.
Richard Behar, an award-winning investigator for Fortune magazine, says Ruckelshaus put his life on the line, taking on the New York mob.
He had more guts than most people I've ever seen in the business world.
Ruckelshaus met with Morgenthau and agreed in the summer of 1993 to put an undercover police officer in BFI's ranks.
In my judgment, if we were going to stay there, we had to cooperate with him.
With BFI's cooperation over the next 3 years, the DA's office got an inside look at a Big Apple industry that appeared to be rotten to the core. From two undercover detectives, one inside BFI and one in another garbage company, the DA gathered 3,000 hours of surveillance tapes. Tapes the DA felt proved once and for all the mob was trying to keep the garbage business all to themselves.
Be advised, you just pulled up parallel to our truck.
In this tape, the undercover detective, posing as a garbage man, tries to pick up trash from his brand new customer.
Be advised, UC is inside.
To the old garbage hauler, who felt he owned that customer, this was breaking the cardinal rule of the carting industry, and they let him know it. And the next day, the undercover detective felt so threatened by the old carter, he didn't even get out of his truck. What do you get from that when you personally watch that video and listen to that audio?
You recognize that these people would not hesitate to engage in violence. You also recognize the tremendous amount of fear that they attempted to instill in anyone who decided to break the rules of the cartel and actually compete for business in the city of New York.
Prosecutor Pat Dugan was appointed to the garbage case in 1995.
The garbage business, as far as the mob was concerned, was like a candy store.
It was nearly impossible for a newcomer to break into the market, and equally difficult for a building owner to switch garbage companies.
Did you feel like you were getting gouged from almost every direction?
Absolutely. There's no question about that.
David Bronner invests pension money for state workers in Alabama. 5 years ago, the retirement fund bought 55 Water Street, one of the largest private office buildings in New York, with an equally large garbage bill.
Our previous bill was about $1.2 million a year.
When you first took over 55 Water Street, who was picking up your garbage?
The Ponte organization.
The Ponte organization, which was one of the top trash haulers in New York, headed by 72-year-old Angelo Ponte. Ponte has been a fundraiser for the Catholic Church, a founder of a reward fund to catch cop killers. He even donated dumpsters to clean up after the ticker tape parade for Gulf War veterans. But investigators view Ponte...
Sir?